Welcome agents. Yesterday we got confirmation that Title Update 4.0 will be the next big content update, and this will probably be the first episode titled DC Outskirts Expedition. Now of course this update will get brand new things, but today I wanted to talk about what needs to be changed, added or removed in the next update. Now if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below, subscribe for dedicated Division content and turn on notifications to never miss a video. With that said, let's start. In preparation for this video, I put out a community post here on YouTube and a Twitter post asking you guys the same question of this video, and that way I could get a small look at what people want in the community and also just compare it to my own ideas for Title Update 4.0. So I'm going to list out the most reoccurring things, or at least the most important in my opinion, and briefly talk about them. Now for number one, and probably the biggest topic right now, is raid matchmaking. Now this is something the devs will be adding at a later date. We know this because they talked about it in the special report. So it's not a question of if it's coming, but when. And it might not actually come out as part of Title Update 4.0, but I wish it does. Unfortunately, on Xbox, you do have some sort of like inbuilt LFG system, which does make it easier to find a group for the raid. But, you know, that's just temporary, and it should be replaced by an in-game matchmaking system. That way people don't have to use, you know, the Xbox LFG, or if you're on PS4 or PC, then use third-party websites to find a group. Like the clan system, the matchmaking system should have many filters that allow you to be fairly specific in what sort of group you want to join, i.e. language, country, etc. And fairly specific people looking for groups or creating groups the same way you would do that with a clan. Next we have loot, and this is a big topic, so I'll try my best to keep it short, but no promises. Now the loot grind currently feels very deflating, and I'm sure all of you will agree with me on that. Now you can farm for hours and hours and either not get the piece of gear that you want, or not get any gear that's a better upgrade to what you currently have. Now what I find strange is that you can get gear 10 to 15 times higher than your own and find it will have significantly worse stats, and yet the raid has a gear score requirement. Why? Gear score clearly matters to the devs, and that's why, you know, you have this gear score requirement. So why is my gear from level 40 no stronger than gear at level 500, or it appears to be that way? Now the devs need to make sure that level 500 gear score is better than level 490 or 499, whatever it might be. Not all of the time, but a lot more often, and that's the problem. And they can do this by lowering the range that attributes can roll, i.e. let's say for example currently the stat range for weapon damage on a backpack is between 2.5% and 9% on a level 500 piece of gear. That stat range needs to be significantly reduced. An example could be, say, 490 gear would have a stat range of 4 to 8% for, say, weapon damage. 500 gear score would be a range of 5% to 9%, and you get the picture. Even bringing this closer together could be an option, like, for example, the 500 gear being 7% to 9%, but some way to bring it closer together, that way there is more opportunity to get gear that's going to be better than your own. And this is just one idea to make level 500 gear much more likely to drop gear that's better than yours, at least in stats, than what you currently have. Now this would apply to armor as well and all the other roles you can get. This alone of course wouldn't work though. 500 gear score loot needs to be obtainable in more places, that's a fact. Getting 490 or lower gear score loot drops from bosses, for example, is, at least in my opinion, stupid. They should always drop 500 gear, and there's plenty of other activities in the game where I think 500 gear score items should be dropped more often. And with these changes in mind, you should experience a much better system. With that said, RNG is not on our side, and we're going to get onto that. So to highlight the problem of RNG, let's take this example from Redditor Swift4010. Now, they put out a post, they wanted a Ariolda Holdings backpack with crit hit damage, all weapon damage, the hard hitting talent, efficient talent, and an offensive mod slot. Now, of the 95 different models of gear, there's only one that matches that description, so, you know, that's a 1 in 95 chance. There are 9 possible attribute rolls, so getting critical hit damage is a 1 in 9 chance. With 8 attributes left, this means getting all weapon damage is a 1 in 8 chance. The passive talent on this backpack will roll naturally only as an offensive one or a utility one, so the odds of getting hard hitting are 1 in 3 chance. The active talent will always be a utility talent, and efficient is a defensive talent, so this will need to be recalibrated. This means it doesn't actually matter which active talent rolls on it. Now this formula gives you a percentage outcome of getting this particular piece of gear as 0.0049%, or a 1 in 20,408 chance. Now this is not my math, this is not my example. I've pretty much read this word for word from Swift 4010, so all credit goes to this person, but the math is right, it's there. And he goes on to say, I assume it's, sorry, they go on, not he, I don't want to do that. They go on to say that this isn't everything as well, because this doesn't take into account purple drops, mods, and all the other stuff. The point is, the chance is so astronomically low that you could farm 50 pieces of gear a day and still be here in 3 years trying to get that backpack. Is there a way around this? Yes and no. The devs could reduce the amount of mods that drop. They could remove purple drops from World Tier 5 activities. They could drop gear for specific bosses or activities. For example, you know, if you've got hyenas and it drops, I don't know, Gilligard and Arialda and something else. Do you know what I mean? So you'd have specific gear for specific factions or bosses or activities. They could allow us to recalibrate more than one piece of gear or attribute, or even allow us to transfer offensive attributes with defensive or utility. So it doesn't have to be blue for blue or red for red. It could be red for blue or red for yellow or blue for yellow. You get what I'm saying. Even to reduce the RNG and make the grind for gear actually feel worth it, these things, just these things alone, would make a massive difference. And I'm sure there's a lot more that you guys can think of. If there is a small chance you will get what you want, that is fine. I'm not saying that you should just get the best gear all of the time. You still want that grind. So it does need to be a small chance. Obviously, that will keep the grind alive. But as it stands, there is basically no chance that you're going to get the piece of the gear that you want. With that in mind, maybe we could have the optimization station back in update 4.0, and maybe a way to see what the max rolls are for each individual stat. I personally loved the optimization station from The Division. Maybe we could use our credits and materials for that sort of thing. Maybe the devs would add a new currency like Phoenix credits. Maybe not Phoenix credits, but something different that could be used specifically for the optimization station. This would give us something to grind for, and means that you'll be rewarded for it, being able to optimize your gear to their max stats, rather than just spending 4 hours, you know, with a very, very astronomically small chance of getting the gear you want, or at least even trying to upgrade your gear, which, you know, again, this would give you a way of actually using that station to optimize your gear. It would actually reward you at the end of those 4 hours. It would be good if you could optimize mods as well, and maybe the devs could add an option on the recalibration station to transfer mod attributes. I think that would be a good change. So many things could be done to improve the current experience. I've barely touched the surface, and I'm sure there's just so much more. Moving on, and the next one is the increased Dark Zone server size. With the new changes to the Dark Zone, it does feel like more people are there, but still too few people. Maybe just adding another 4 people might help that. On the subject of the Dark Zone, the NPCs in the Occupied Dark Zone are absolutely brutal. They make any landmark feel like a sort of mini heroic mission. If you're a solo player trying to clear one of those, you're going to be there all day. You're probably going to die 1,000 times. It's ridiculous. So they really need to scale that back a bit. Otherwise, you know, you're just not going to go to those landmarks unless you're in a group of 4. And even if you're in a group of 4, it's still very difficult. Crafting, is it me, or is crafting just completely pointless at endgame? Crafting gear up to level 490 and not max gear score doesn't seem right to me. Also, you cannot recalibrate your gear that you've crafted. Again, I think this needs to be an option. I'm not sure exactly how they could improve the crafting station, but as it stands, to me, it's just absolutely pointless. The only thing you can use it really for is crafting mods, but even then, you can't pick what sort of mod you want. So you've even there got RNG as well. There's just so much RNG even in the crafting as well. It's crazy, but yeah, crafting for me is kind of one of those what's the point kind of thing. So I really don't know what they should do about that. Next up, buffing the TAC 50 specialization. There is no reason to ever use the TAC 50 over the Nemesis as it stands. In fact, even without the Nemesis, I rarely use the TAC 50 because the per bullet damage is too low, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't penetrate NPCs, meaning you cannot hit multiple enemies at once, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was meant to do. We don't want to nerf to the Nemesis, so I think they have to buff the TAC 50, and even think the explosive crossbow is probably a little bit too weak as well, and that might need some love. Definitely the TAC 50 though, it's far too weak. There's no reason to use it. I would much rather just use a Model 700 or something like that. I find it's much easier to use as well because the TAC 50 doesn't have any aim assist, whereas a Model 50 does, especially without the without a VX10 sight or anything like that when you're just not scoping in. So it's much easier to hit headshots. It's just all round better. So yeah, buff the TAC 50, definitely. PvP still needs some significant changes, at least on console, and I think it's something the devs have to address as soon as possible, really. Now, the devs basically doubled the armor and health, decreased the PvP modifier, and they never thought time to kill would be an issue. Maybe it's okay on PC, and maybe this is why it's a problem, because the PTS was only tested on PC where hitting headshots and all that stuff is much easier. Maybe the time to kill for the PTS on PC was absolutely fine, but for console, it's pretty horrible right now. Now, I find that when Massive makes changes, there's no middle ground. It's either one way or the other. It's either you're going to be a full tank or you're going to get one shot. And this is a good example of that. Now, LMGs are by far the best PvP weapons right now because they just have so much sustained damage that no other gun can match, which is why, everyone is a tank because of these changes, and that's why they're just so strong. Now, I still think there needs to be more rewards for PvP activities like special PvP weapons or something. Having a ranking system which actually means something is important, and right now there's nothing of interest there. Now, we've tested it and it don't work. They need to change the PvP modifier from say 40% to 50% for 1 week and see what the community has to say. Time to kill still too high? Increase it to 60%. Too low? Reduce it to 55%. Incremental steps to find the right balance seems, to me, like the logical way to fix things, but not huge changes like 70% to 40% and then doubling armor and doubling health and adding total armor attribute and health percentage attribute, which, by the way, having tested them more, appear to be almost completely useless. My point is, they've gone from one extreme to the other, and it's not working. On console, the time to kill is far too high. They need to make some changes. My suggestion is they increase the PvP modifier, and that, incrementally, and get feedback from the community and find the right balance. This is just a very small list of things I wanted to talk about. And there is plenty more, like a lack of diversity in the raid, skills and skill power, etc. The list is endless at this point. Now, for me, the most important things right now are raid matchmaking and significant loot changes. Getting stronger with better loot and feeling rewarded for your time invested will keep people playing. Right now, a lot of people are simply not putting in the hours because it's likely to give them nothing towards making their builds any better. And how do you expect players to take on the hardest content in the game if the RNG is so low they can never get the gear required to even compete in those activities? Now, I've been grinding for my build since the raid drop for about 2 to 3 hours a day, and I'm way off my build. Now, I've never had this problem in the division, so whatever worked there, make it work here. Anyway, if you stuck around until the end, thank you very much for watching. This video was meant to be constructive. I hope it has been. It's not meant to be just a negative rant, although sometimes I do get a little bit passionate. As you know, I rarely post negative stuff because to me it's pointless if it's got no substance. Now, I hope that if any devs watch this, they consider some of the changes in this video and all of the stuff people are posting on the forums and socials. With that in mind though, until the next one, guys, epic out.